Suzuki race has been given that honour. It's also 18 years since a British bike took the laurels in the race of the year, but the Nortons have a real chance today. The man who has qualified, however, and right back in form, number 2, Brian Morrison, pole position. With me is Steve Parrish. Steve, the Nortons are fast round here, but Morrison there back in form.
Yes, I don't think the Nortons' power is going to make that much difference here today. It's who can ride round the corners the quickest, and Brian Morrison has certainly done that this morning.
Well, next to Morrison on the grid, number 5, Trevor Nation, who had his first win last weekend at Donington Park since Easter, would you believe. Nation had a particularly unhappy mid-season period, falling heavily in the Super Cup at Cadwell, injuring his right little finger. He is now back in superb form. And the man in the middle of the front row in the distinctive yellow livery, Ray Stringer, riding number 17, who absolutely took Thruxton by storm. Ray Stringer, formerly a Suzuki rider, Steve, has really hit form on the Yamaha. Now their number 4 is Carl Fogarty, 2 times world Formula 1 champion, 1988 and 89. Fogarty also can deliver the goods around Mallory Park. And number 1, I think, Steve Parrish, you can tell us about this man.
Well, yeah, Mark is right bang back on form as well. He finished 3rd and 2nd at Cadwell Park last week, and he's really looking forward to the race. He's gone very well in practice, and I think he's a man to watch.
Terry Reimer, also another one of the Loctite Yamaha team members, straight back from Japan, where the Superbikes had less than a happy weekend last weekend.
Yeah, Terry only got a 13th position, but it was very, very wet race. In fact, he's on the bike that's just come back from Japan. We only picked it up from the airport yesterday, so he's doing very well to even be here.
Well, the circuit here, 1.37 miles, very, very fast indeed. The lap record standing at a little over 50 seconds. Incredibly fast. Steve, can you just talk us around a lap of Mallory?
Yes, you're now coming down the start and finish straight into Gerrard's. Gerrard's is back 1 gear into 5th gear with these big 750 machines. They've got a lot of torque. You can run it all the way around here in 5th gear. About 125 mile an hour corner, which is an extremely fast corner, one of the fastest in England. Now you power it out onto the straight, drifting out to the left-hand side, using every bit of road you possibly can. This is the fastest part on the course. I would estimate about 135, 140 mile an hour before you go back into 3rd gear for the S's. As you see the rider cranking in there, hard round, drifting to the left-hand side, flicking it over to the left now and powering up to the hairpin in 4th gear. Here is the hardest braking point on the circuit. It's right down from 4th, 3rd, 2nd into 1st gear, 20 miles an hour, very, very slow. Pulling away, the front wheel comes up in the air as you come up to the bus stop chicane, tight left, right, hard on the power now, 2nd gear, 3rd gear into Devil's Elbow, which brings you back onto the start and finish straight and down to where the riders are coming for the start of the race onto the grid. There's the lap of Mallory Park.
The Devil's Elbow, of course, where Brian Morrison threw it away so spectacularly last year, hoping not to repeat that performance. 1.37 miles the distance, 20 laps the full distance. There you have the front 6. Morrison on pole, Nation on the Norton, Stringer, Fogarty, Mark Phillips, Terry Reimer, and the other Norton not on the front row. So Nation, big things expected of him. 27.4 miles. The race will last a little over 20 minutes. This is going to be thrilling stuff. The outright lap record held by Trevor Nation, 50.9 seconds over 121 miles an hour. It strikes me, Steve Parrish, that right-handed bend could prove hard on the tyres.
Yes, it is very hard. It's a one-way circuit and extremely hard on the right-hand side, so the tyres tend to get very hot on the right but very cool on the left, so you have to run a reasonably soft compound just to make it work on the left. But under orders.
Blake Marshall moving away, front wheels pawing the air as they leave the line, and a Loctite Yamaha leading from Ray Stringer, but it's Fogarty, Stringer, Chambers, sorting themselves out round Gerrard's. Named after Bob Gerrard, the famous Leicestershire racing driver. Ben takes them almost round the full half of a circle.
Always very, very tight as they come up here to the hairpin. It's very, very slow. A lot of people will be trying to break up the inside.
Coming up to the hairpin for the first time. After the hairpin will be the chicane, the bus stop. waiting for the riders to come round. Fogarty, Chambers, it's Stringer there, Terry Reimer in fourth. Coming across the line, Fogarty leads. And the Norton coming up now, the Norton in fourth place alongside Terry Reimer, but Carl Fogarty, Steve Chambers, Ray Stringer, the sensational man on the Yamaha, who has come forward so prominently, devastatingly quick. But Fogarty, World Formula One champion, Carl Fogarty from Blackburn, leading by a very, very narrow margin from young Steve Chambers, who injured his ankle last week. Chambers going through on the inside, fell at Cadwell at Charlie's last week, injured the ankle, apparently not impeding his progress at all, but Fogarty still on the outside at the hairpin. Very tight action there, Steve.
Yeah, Fogarty went the long way round and he's made it work because he's in front of Chambers, but that was an incredible move by Chambers as he passed him on the S's there. He's actually had brake problems this morning, but he hasn't got any at the moment.
Those top three. Ray Stringer, number 17 in third. The man in the middle of your picture now, riding number 17, Fogarty. Chambers, Stringer, right with him, and we've mistaken these two in the past. The livery very distinctive indeed, but no mistaking them now. There you have the top six, Terry Reimer in fourth, Trevor Nation in fifth, and Steve Spray on the other Norton in sixth place. Now, leading the table at the moment is Steve Spray on 26. He is 9 points clear. He will need to do more than sixth place to go home from Mallory with the Shell Oils F1 Super Cup trophy in his pocket. Just look at the rear wheel under heavy braking there, and Chambers
is off, yeah, and Stringer's running the back of him. He can get back on. I don't think there's any damage, but he's off and he's push starting now. He'll be away in a minute, but Terry Reimer nipped through into second place when that happened. Oh, he's off again. Such bad luck for Steve Chambers.
What an unhappy saga. That was drama indeed at the hairpin. Steve Chambers locked it up. He was a little bit too tight. He lost his balance and his race is over. Talk us through it.
Well, Fogarty cut in on him a bit there and he leant in too much. He hit the wall and then that was the end of the race. The bike stalled and unfortunately poor Ray Stringer just had nowhere to go. The pair of them were off, but that let the field go through.
Well, now can Stringer work because he's well down the field. Fogarty from Terry Reimer now in second place on the Yamaha. The man from South London, Terry Reimer. The two Nortons are third and fourth. So what dramatic developments for poor Steve Chambers. Look at Trevor Nation in third. Terry Reimer going well in second. Has the Norton any power advantage over the Yamaha?
Well, if it has, it'll do it on the back straight, and Trevor Nation does look the danger man at the moment. You'll see the bike close fractionally as it comes down the straight here. He's right behind Terry Reimer as they enter Gerrard's Bend at 90 miles an hour. When you come out of Gerrard's Bend, that's where the trouble will be.
Tim Bourne pushing away there, so another faller at the hairpin. Ryder fit and well, pushing the stricken machine away. Just look at Trevor Nation, number 5 on the Norton, tucking in behind Terry Reimer, having a go. Steve Spray right with him. Brilliant performance by the Norton teamster. Absolutely bang-on form. A win last week. Can he repeat the performance and deliver another F1 win here at Mallory Park? He's right with them. Terry Reimer now through into the lead. Superb stuff. This will go some way towards making up for last week's disappointment.
Yes, he had a lot of problems last week, but it's certainly coming through good here, and he'll be keen to get away now from Fogarty, and he'll be hoping that Fogarty holds the Nortons up, but I don't think it's going to take more than Fogarty to do that.
Well, this is where the speed of the Norton is telling, but no, it's Fogarty. Fogarty and Reimer side by side. Unbelievably close action. What a way to set the day going here at Mallory Park. It is Honda, Carl Fogarty, Terry Reimer on the Yamaha, Trevor Nation on the Norton, and Steve Spray tucked in behind the flying quartet. 1, 2, 3, 4, there they go. Fantastic stuff. It's a long time since I've seen racing like this, and the race of the year living up to its reputation.
Yeah, it's incredible. Trevor Nation is really trying hard. You can see the machine bucking and weaving around, and Fogarty's run wide. It's allowed Reimer through. Fogarty went very wide. He's in the third spot now, so both the Nortons have gone through. You know, he's back into third, but Reimer now is his chance to get away. If he can make this break, he'll get clean away. Mark Phillips there in 5th place.
And Morrison tucked in behind Mark Phillips. The Norton of Steve Spray rocketing past Carl Fogarty up into third. So Terry Reimer riding the race of his life here at Mallory Park to lead the two flying Nortons. Remember, Spray is looking for 10 points if he possibly can. He will have to ride his socks off to get it. They're the top 6. Morrison 6th, Mark Phillips, Fogarty, Spray, Nation, Reimer. You're watching them all now.
Ryman just gradually pulling out a few yards here and be keen to get away, because if they get in the slipstream of him, they'll definitely pass him down the straight.
Fogarty is in second place jointly in the championship with Morrison and Roger Burnett. Roger Burnett is not in the picture at the moment, but Carl Fogarty is. Fogarty is in fourth place. In fifth, still Phillips. In sixth, it's still Morrison. Seventh place, it's Ian Simpson as they go across the line. So the first Suzuki in the battle. Ian Simpson in seventh place. 1, 2, 3, 4. There is Fogarty.
You can see the speed of the Norton now as it closes in on Terry Reimer as they go up the straight, but Reimer's very late on the brakes and extends that lead once again. But he's looking very calm and cool. He's riding a very nice race at the moment.
Under real pressure, Terry Reimer from Trevor Nation. Nation on the outside at the hairpin, but he's running wide again. Difficult to get the power down at that point. They're coming up to lap poor old Steve Chambers, who fell so heavily. What a frustrating day for him. Mark Phillips, Morrison.
Once again, the speed of the Norton catches him as they come down the straightaway, but this is going to be a problem for Terry Reimer, because Steve Chambers is lapping at the same sort of speeds as they'll be doing, so to get past him could be a problem.
Steve Chambers will have to do the decent thing. We have no blue flag system here at Mallory Park, but he will be aware that the leading bunch is right behind him. Steve Chambers sits up. Terry Reimer through on the inside at the Lake S's. Trevor Nation, up goes the hand. A brilliantly sporting gesture from Steve Chambers, but he lets Steve Spray go around the outside. Fogarty is there. This, the race leader, number 3, Terry Reimer from Lee Green in South London. 22 years of age. Big, stocky, you have to be powerful to ride these big 4-strokes.
Well, I think that Steve Chambers actually did Terry Reimer a favour then as he put his hand up. It slowed Trevor Nation and Steve Spray, so it's given Terry once again a chance to pull away those few yards that he's desperately trying to do. That's a terrific shot, power sliding that motorcycle around there at 120 miles an hour. 130 brake horsepower, powering down the straight now, getting on to 140 miles an hour.
This, the leader. Second, third place, the two Norton riders having a battle royal in second and third between themselves. I suspect just a little bit too of team rivalry creeping in there, because Trevor Nation, as I say, has been off colour recently. He never really recovered from the Cadwell setback, but is right bang on form. They were having a battle last week at Donington, and Steve Spray fell on the last lap and handed it to Nation on a plate, but Nation is really fighting well here at Mallory Park. Fogarty still in touch, but nothing between these two. These are the second and third place men. Over half distance now of Mallory Park's race of the year done.
Well, Trevor Nation will be very, very keen to put one over on Steve Spray. He's had a bit of a lean season, but he's riding very well now, and Steve's going to be hard pushed to pass him.
As the top 6 leaderboard disappears from your picture, this is the battle for second place. Steve Spray round the outside, but to no avail. He's tucked in again from Nottingham, Steve Spray. 26 years of age, really has clicked. He won his first outing on the Norton, and he has never looked back. In fourth place, it's Fogarty. Fifth, Phillips. Sixth, it is Morrison. In seventh, still Ian Simpson. In eighth place, it's number 45, Nick Jeffries, on yet another Yamaha.
Poor old Roger Burnett down in 12th position at the moment. That won't please him. He must obviously have some sort of problem.
After bursting onto the Super Cup scene, Roger Burnett not able to consolidate on that points advantage. Now in second place, still on the table on 17, but he needs to do a darn sight better than 12th place to do anything about any points. The points are 10 for a win. This the battle for 5th place, and Morrison on the outside of Mark Phillips. Phillips holding the tight line, doing his utmost to keep Morrison at bay, and Morrison, Steve, has been getting quicker by the week again.
Yeah, Morrison's bang back on form. In fact, he's the pole position holder, so I don't know whether he's a tyre problem or something, because he's well off the pace at the moment. The other riders are lapping, getting on for half a second quicker, which is quite a long way on this circuit.
Mark Phillips, 5th place. Morrison in 6th, paying very close attention indeed to the rear wheel. These are the leading trio. In number 3 in 1st place, Terry Reimer. 2nd, it's still Nation. 3rd, it's still Spray. 4th, Fogarty. 5th and 6th place men, numbers 1 and 2, Phillips and Morrison. And 25-year-old Mark Phillips, we've not seen much of him at late, but he did have a very, very heavy tumble.
Yes, he had a nasty crash at the end of last season. He's really been recovering all the way through this season, but this is the best I've seen him ride all year, and I'm very, very pleased for him, because he was definitely keen to get a result before the end of the season. But he's now pulling away from Morrison, so I think he's secured a nice, safe 5th position.
Well, Brian Morrison said earlier that things had not been going his way in terms of reliability. He'd had lots of little niggling problems earlier in the season, but that now seems to be going away. And he certainly is circulating quickly, but not quickly enough to do anything about these two men and the Yamaha ahead of them. Terry Reimer, the race leader.
If I'm not mistaken, I think the Nortons are closing in on Terry Reimer. They seem to be inching slowly closer.
Well, incredible action from the Norton duo. I said at the opening of the race, it is many, many years since a British bike won this race of the year at Mallory, and that was John Cooper on the BSA 3 in an epic duel with Giacomo Agostini, the great Italian, the man who carved his name in the history books. And Cooper got the verdict on that day, and that was the last occasion on which a British bike took the race of the year. A Japanese machine still heading the two Nortons by something like 25 machine lengths. Race leader, Terry Reimer on the Yamaha.
Well, all these riders will be getting their pit signals now. Terry Reimer will be getting a plus nothing, because that's about what it is. It's about half a second, which is not enough. He just, the rear end slid out, then he tried to power it out the corner too quickly, slid the rear tyre, but all the tyres will be going off a bit now. 20 laps, the tyres are built to last 20 laps, and that's all. And with these few laps remaining, they'll be getting very, very slippery.
Well, that gives you some idea of the lightning reflexes these riders have. Reimer responded to that in a fraction of a second. Lesser mortals would have been thrown over the high side and disappeared into the weeds, but not Terry Reimer. He is still with it. Just look how close they are now. Trevor Nation right on the rear wheel of Terry Reimer's Yamaha. This is where the speed of the Norton, if it does have superior speed, will tell. Terry Reimer, number 3, still fighting it, keeping those Nortons at bay. What tremendous action. Trevor Nation and Spray up towards the hairpin. On with the rear brake. Rear wheels skating all over the road on Reimer's Yamaha, but still he's there. He's really going to be put under pressure in the dying laps.
Yes, well, Terry doesn't normally look behind, but he'll be getting his pit signals. I don't think he'll be aware that they're so close. You can see the machines leaving big black lines there at 100 miles an hour as their wheels spinning. Nation goes through. Nation's superior power powers through, but now it's Terry's chance to stick behind him and try and pass him on the on the last lap.
Well, there you have it. Trevor Nation on the Norton, number 5, went past the Yamaha, not quite as though it was standing still, but in very, very spectacular fashion. Devastatingly fast Nortons, and the two straights here give them ample opportunity to demonstrate that speed. Reimer down to 2nd. There he is in the middle of your picture in the red leathers, number 3 on the Yamaha. He is sandwiched well and truly, but he's fighting back. This is tremendously spirited stuff from Terry Reimer, and he had to go wide as a result of that. But can he keep the advantage? Yes, he can. Terry Reimer, Trevor Nation, Steve Spray. Well, what action, and there's Fogarty.
Reimer went wide there, but he managed to keep the line, and that's all he, but Nation's going to pass him down the inside now as they go into Gerrard's. Can Reimer hold him off? Yes, he can. He's tipped it in, cut him off. Now is his chance. He's got a few yards there.
Well, we have to say, Steve, that Terry Reimer is using his talent and the speed of that motorcycle to its utmost to fight off these two Nortons. This really will be a worthy victory if he makes it.
Very much so, yes. The machine isn't as fast, but it is handling extremely well. But now Trevor seems to be slowing a bit, and he looks to me like he's holding Steve Spray up, which might make him a happy man.
No team orders, of course, for the Norton camp. They are equally talented riders. They are in there fighting, and they can both deliver the goods when asked of them. In practice, Trevor Nation was pulling 130-mile-an-hour wheelies past the start-finish area with the wheel 45 degrees at inclination. Incredibly talented and very, very brave indeed. The Nortons so fast, they get them down. But look at Terry Reimer, knee on the tarmac.
Yeah, I think you'll see Trevor close again. He's come around Gerrard's very fast. They're doing 130 miles an hour as they exit that corner. Nation's coming down the outside, but Reimer is on the right line. I think he can hold him here. Yeah, he's held the line, and Trevor's going to be hard pushed to pass him now before the finishing line.
The late S's up towards the hairpin. This is where it all happened. Shaw's hairpin right down the gearbox, all the way down the gearbox, up towards the chicane. Terry Reimer riding with the maturity of a rider well beyond his 22 years. Coming out of the devil's elbow over the line. The stopwatch is running on Terry Reimer. The ultimate lap record here. 50.9 seconds held by Nation. They are on their last lap, and this is all about speed down the back straight. Nation coming the long way round. The Norton is absolutely on the stop. What trust, and almost onto the grass they go. Reimer was drifting wide there because he had no alternative, and he shot away dramatically there on the brakes, left his braking very, very late. Terry Reimer through the Lake S's, up towards the hairpin. Trevor Nation, it's going to be about the sprint through the chicane and down to the line. The checkered flag now being prepared. Reimer, Nation, and Steve Spray. We are waiting with bated breath, and Reimer gets the verdict. 51.1 seconds. Marginally outside the track record. Steve Parrish, what a brilliant race.
Yeah, terrific race. As Terry managed to get down the straight before Trevor Nation, then he was able to win the race. So that was what it was all about, getting into the S's first.
Terry Reimer won that by the skin of his teeth and 1 machine lengths. Trevor Nation second. In third place, it was Steve Spray. Carl Fogarty led it, but could do no better than fourth. Morrison got Phillips, who finished sixth in the country. So very, very fast. We're looking for a magical 1:33.6 lap, which will give us 100 miles an hour around here. It could well happen in the 750s. There it is. The piece at the bottom is the old 1.2 mile circuit, but leaving the start, the riders go into the very, very familiar Paddock Hill bend, dropping away down Halewood Hill up the other side to Druids. Second gear, 40 miles an hour around here. Away down Graham Hill, left-handed adverse camber into Graham Hill bend. Accelerating then along the Cooper Straight, hurling it into the fast left-hander, second gear, 60 miles an hour of Surtees. Away up onto the new bit then, Pilgrim's Drop, right-handed round Hawthorne. This would be slowing down from the fastest part of the circuit. The big uns are about 165 miles an hour into Hawthorne. Fourth gear, 120. Derek Minter Straight up to Westfield, the apex of the circuit there at the top of your picture. Then down through Dingledale, through the chicane. The left-hander at Stirling's brings them into Clearways, Clark Curve to complete the 2.6 mile lap. The 750s then, we have 2 races in each of our Super Cup events. 20 points are up for stake, and there you see the table. Without a win, looking for it today, hoping to repeat his transatlantic success here, Ron Haslam, heading the table. Ray Stringer, the privateer, is there on 52 points. Rob McElnay, who fell yesterday in practice, has bounced back, but is going to be a force to be reckoned with. Terry Reimer won't ride, he has a broken collarbone. Neil Mackenzie and Trevor Nation are in joint 5th place. Front row then, McElnay stormed round fastest in pole position, so there he sits alongside him from Kirkcaldy, Brian Morrison. Then it's Ray Stringer in the middle of the front row. Kawasaki Teamster John Reynolds riding number 6, and Haslam on the Norton completes the front row. So those 5 will be diving into Paddock Hill Bend at a rate of knots. Big Rob McElnay, 30 years of age, the Humbersider. Teammate Terry Reimer, as I say, not here to uphold the Loctite Yamaha Challenge, so it all rests very squarely on the shoulders of big Rob Mack, but he's more than equal to the task. Looking for a win. He's already had a good win in Super Cup, hoping to repeat that again today. Brian Morrison, 3rd place in the Isle of Man in the TT just last week, so takes a bit of getting used to the short circuits again after the 37.2 Isle of Man circuit, but Brian Morrison, very talented, a good hard rider, and we're seeing some of the form he showed in the 1988-1989 season. Brian Morrison then. Umbrellas out as I can see the sun just sort of beating down Team Mobile Coleman. Ray Stringer riding number 17. Ray Stringer using new technology on the Yamaha, which pretty well tells him lap by lap his lap times, the speed he went round at, and he has a little digital printout tucked in behind the fairing there. There's John Reynolds riding number 6, Team Green Kawasaki. Really seems to be able to get that Kawasaki along very quickly. Looking to impress. John would dearly love to ride in the Grand Prix and has in fact been tipped as a potential GP pilot. 40 riders then take to the line in the 750s. The all-black Norton piloted by the very, very popular Ron Haslam from Langley Mill. Back here in the UK after 6 or 7 years out on the Grand Prix circus, and the British crowds love to see him. Probably one of the most popular riders around, Ron. Looking, as I say, for that elusive first Super Cup win. The riders will set off on a warm-up lap of this 2.6-mile circuit. Not a lot of warming up to do today. As I say, it's very, very warm. Clouds, though, threaten, and if the weather conditions were to change, then we would have all sorts of problems here. No question about tyre choice at the moment, however. Everybody well and truly on slicks. A good crowd here. The Super Cup has attracted magnificent spectator support at trackside. Some 35 riders will go in the 750 F1 TT class as riders set off on the warm-up lap, and out of wraps really for the first time since last week in the Isle of Man TT. Today sees the first short circuit appearance of the brand new 1991 NRS 588 Norton in the hands of both Ron Haslam and Trevor Nation. Team manager Barry Simmons is very pumped up and optimistic about the Norton's racing future.
That is the same with the wheels and the suspension units, and it's been put together by Norton Motors in conjunction with various British manufacturers. In fact, I think there's only about 2 or 3 parts on here which aren't made in the UK. I think any dyed-in-the-wool motorcyclist is pleased to see the name of Norton back on the winner's podium. It's received tremendous public support from the people who come to the meetings, the people who send us get well cards when the bikes break down and good luck cards before the meetings. It's very gratifying to all concerned.
To begin with, it was very exciting to be involved in to be riding a British bike that's competitive, because there isn't a British competitive bike around, or there wasn't until then. So it was exciting to start with, and it still is. I mean, the bike's progressing, a new bike is on the horizon, and we're looking forward to that very much.
You recently had...
Well, let's see, is that new Norton going to give Ron Haslam the victory he is so anxious to achieve? My usual partner in crime, Steve Parrish, is away racing his truck in Europe today, and we'll be having Roger Burnett, ex-Grand Prix star, with us, but he, of course, competes in this race. But alongside me, 6 times British champion Rob Orme, who those of you who watched the 125 race in Donington will remember Rob and Robert Dunlop crashed very heavily at the exit of Goddard's on the last lap. Rob, the 750s, will they be much of a handful round here?
Yes, Barry. They're going to be working extremely hard today. Tyres will come into it. The circuit is extremely demanding, very tight and twisty. Yesterday and the day before, all the teams have had to work extremely hard to get suspension to cope with all the different corners and bumps and undulations around Brands Hatch. But certainly, as you mentioned earlier, with it being a dry day, it'll help immensely. So it's going to be very tight and close.
Okay, well, they're lining up now. Thanks, Rob, and we'll be back to you periodically during this 15-lap race. 39 miles, the full distance, and Rob will be giving us the qualified point of view from time to time. Jamie Whittam gave us the rider's eye view of the 2.6-mile Brands circuit as the riders go. Into Paddock Hill Bend. Heeling over. Now just look how close they are. Right in the picture there, Roger Burnett on the fairly naked 750cc Honda, not getting an awful lot of sponsorship this year, Roger. So Jamie in the thick of the action, down towards Graham Hill Bend, heeling it over. Number 7 hitting the front from the word go. Ian Simpson from Del Beatty, so a great start for Simpson on the Francis Neal bike. Away now onto the new part of the circuit. The 750s a go. Just look at McElnay, number 8, pulling alongside Simpson, going round the outside at Hawthorne. So McElnay now will be charging up through the gearbox, hanging on to 4th, throwing it in again. So McElnay at Westfield. Rob, that was a good start by Ian Simpson, but McElnay seems to have established dominance from the very word go. Is the plan over 15 laps really to get out in front as far as possible?
Certainly, this track is quite tight and twisty, and to make a good start gives you a big advantage. Ian Simpson certainly got the whole shot there. He's putting his 1991 European Championship experience to full use, and being up there in the first 3 will help immensely.
Still with Whittam then, but Whittam seeing the fast disappearing backside of the riders in front of him as they complete 1 lap over the start-finish line with Jamie Whittam. It's Tim Bourne, the Kawasaki rider, on the inside, but Rob McElnay is away at the end of lap 1 up Halewood Hill. Ian Simpson now has been relegated, so number 8, Rob McElnay, leads. In 2nd place now it's John Reynolds. John Reynolds, number 6 on the Kawasaki, firmly tucked in. The team green, very distinctive green and blue bike of Reynolds, following Rob McElnay. Then in 3rd place, it's still number 7, Ian Simpson. Then it's number 2, Brian Morrison. So a pair of Scots there battling it out together. McElnay, however, leads. Rob, I saw there in 5th place one of the Nortons lurking. It looked like Haslam. In fact, yes, it is Haslam. Are Nortons going to be able to use the superior power of this new bike at this circuit?
I'm certain that it will help to a certain extent, and with the 1991 chassis being a lot lighter than in previous years, with the quite sudden changes of direction, that will begin to tell later in the race. So the Nortons certainly will make a good showing. I noticed that Ray Stringer on the Mobile One Team Coleman Yamaha, he's moving up there. He's putting his experience from the match races earlier in the season to good use. So he's looking for a consistent result here to keep his championship points on the up.
McElnay then, Reynolds firmly tucked in the slipstream. Still Ian Simpson in 3rd, then it's Brian Morrison, but the leading duo stretching away, and on the inside of Paddock Hill Bend, it's John Reynolds. So John Reynolds, but no, McElnay cuts across the bows and just closes the door, denying John Reynolds the opportunity. But these two now are going to be locked in it all the way up to Druids, and I think we're set for a right old tussle in this 15-lapper. Reynolds and McElnay, numbers 8 and 6 respectively. There it is, so still 12 and a little bit laps left to do. Off, as I said yesterday, Rob McElnay, so will he be suffering any ill effects? And if he is that in his mind right now?
I spoke to Rob earlier this morning, and he seems to be quite physically all right. What will be in his mind at the moment is to certainly keep the lead, but he only wants to be going at the speed that will win in the race, so he'll be looking at his pit board to see how much of a lead that both himself and John Reynolds have on the rest of the field. So Rob will be very much gauging to see how hard he's got to go in order to win the race. So certainly at this time he'll be pacing himself, and John Reynolds, he again will be pacing himself, trying to keep with Rob Mack and getting away from 3rd place man. At the moment that's still Ian Simpson, so the race very much at the front, but the pack, they'll be getting the tyres warm now, and they can still see the 2 front runners, and they'll be chasing hard.
Well, I'm looking interested at the clock, because yesterday everyone was saying if they can go round here at 1:33.6 rather, we're going to get a 100-mile-an-hour lap. Well, Rob McElnay, number 8, has already gone round in 1:32.96. So the 100-mile-an-hour lap of the Grand Prix circuit here at Brands has been achieved for the first time, as into the lead goes number 6, John Reynolds from Nottingham on the Kawasaki, and he has now eclipsed that time marginally. There it is, 100.97. Reynolds so far the fastest lapper of the big Brands circuit. Down in 4th place now, Ron Haslam, having gone past Morrison. So the running order at the end almost of lap 3. McElnay leads, Reynolds, then it's Stringer. Ron Haslam is in 4th place. Then it's Morrison, then Simpson, and Carl Fogarty is down in 7th. On lap 4, I beg your pardon, there it is. Reynolds, still number 8, Rob McElnay having a good look at the inside. Look at that. Goes in on the brakes and sweeps through the chicane. This is a very tricky part of the circuit, and Roger Burnett will tell us later on, as he was telling me just earlier, it's very difficult approaching that. There's a little bit of a rise, and the braking marker, or rather the apex of the corner, virtually disappears. Rob, is that the case?
Absolutely. You approach that chicane in 5th gear at over 100 miles an hour, and it's actually what we call a blind corner. You don't actually see the peeling point to the corner until you're upon it. So it's one that you must very much get correct, or your exit speed is well down and people will catch you there. So it's a very technical part. Now we've got John Reynolds now is chasing hard. Rob McElnay. Rob's seen that people are closing on him, so now I'm sure he'll try and make a break. We've got the Norton of Ron Haslam now in 3rd. Ray Stringer holding station, so...
Well, it's settling, and Haslam's on his way. So number 20, Ron Haslam, there he is, the black bike in your picture now, on that 1991 brand new ultralight Norton. Chassis work done by Ron Williams, put together by Harris Performance. It was aired last week for the first time in the Isle of Man, where Trevor Nation finished 3rd in the TT, only to be disqualified for having an oversized fuel tank. So a bit of an unhappy week in the Isle of Man for Norton. So they're hoping to make up for their misfortune here at Brands in the hands of Ron Haslam, who certainly has clicked with the team. He's very popular with the rest of the team, gets on very well with Trevor Nation, his teammate, and is equally well liked by Barry Simmons, the team manager, because he's really piling on the coals here. Haslam using all the track and more, just clipped the curb at the chicane there, but he's got John Reynolds, number 6, and McElnay firmly in his sights as we ride with Jamie Whittam now up through the gearbox, up on the fastest part of the circuit, heeling now into Hawthorne, all the way over. I'm sorry, I beg your pardon, that's down through Clearways onto the start-finish straight. So Jamie Whittam just trying to look as though that's Fogarty in front of Whittam. It is indeed. That's number 9, Carl Fogarty in front of Jamie Whittam, and right behind James Whittam is Roger Burnett riding number 10. So Whittam now having a very serious dig at the back end of Carl Fogarty. Rob, just if we could hark back to a second to that epic 125cc race at Donington and the collision with Robert Dunlop. A bit of a scenario. What exactly happened there?
Well, all through the race, I'd suffered a little bit with lack of power from the Melbourne hairpin up to Goddard's hairpin, and Rob would pull about 3 or 4 bikes lengths on me every lap, and I must admit I became a little bit frustrated. And on the last 3 laps of the race, the gloves were really off, and there was no quarter asked or given, and I had to make up the usual 3 bikes lengths and also try and put the pass on my 125 friend. And unfortunately, that took me onto some tyre rubber that had been left from the previous week's car meeting, and I paid the price and unfortunately took Robbie Dunlop down with me. It certainly wasn't intentional, though.
Well, it's history now, and it certainly provided the viewers at home and us here in the commentary point with some thrilling action at Donington. But thrilling action here at Brands we have indeed, because the top 3, Rob McElnay, John Reynolds and Ron Haslam, have really closed to within a whisker. Haslam has tacked himself on the back of the flying duo ahead of him. So Yamaha leads, Kawasaki in 2nd place, and the Norton in 3rd. In 4th place, it's still Ray Stringer. So 4 machines now stretching away from Ian Simpson, the early leader, who's now down in 5th. I just have a sneaking feeling that John Reynolds might have the measure of Rob McElnay. He's certainly going well, but look at that, there it is. Haslam has gone round at 101 and getting quicker all the time. The wily old Ron Haslam, has he got anything up his sleeve?
Most certainly. He's seen that the 2 guys in front of him have been dicing for the lead, and whilst they've been doing that, they tend to slow each other down. So Rob McElnay and John Reynolds are a little bit guilty of slowing themselves down. and Ron Haslam, using the superior power of the Norton and all his Grand Prix experience, has been slowly nickel and diming his way up to the back wheel of John Reynolds, and so shortly what is now a two-way dice will become a three-way dice. And again, while that's happening, Ray Stringer on the NatWes Yamaha is catching all three of them up, so by mid-race distance we could have a real Hail Mary of a race here.
30 years of age, the race leader, Rob McElnay from Humberside. John Reynolds, 26 years of age, in second place, and 34 by comparison, a veteran, 34 years of age, number 20, Ron Haslam, in third. Rocket Ron, as he's known by the fans and just about everyone close to him. He's earned that reputation over the years because he's been such a dynamic force in the world of motorcycle racing, and he really has now launched a very serious attack on the Kawasaki ahead of him, and nothing separates these three at Druids. Reynolds is getting the pit signals loud and clear that Haslam is as close as he's been during the race, and they're exiting now Graham Hill Bend along Cooper Straight. Haslam up through the gearbox. Second gear here at Surtees, 60 miles an hour and driving hard. The problem here, I suppose, Rob, it's a bit tight, too much power, and the back wheel steps out.
Absolutely, it's a negative camber, that corner is, and you really have to give the throttle a lot of respect, or else you can cause yourself a lot of trouble. And if you, in fact, you don't fall off, it can actually make up to 10 or 15 miles an hour difference down the straight if you don't get the line correct. So Rob McElnay is really concentrating on the racing line, and John Reynolds chasing hard, but we see Ron Haslam now on the Norton is almost up with John Reynolds, and with something like 4 or 5 laps to go, the race will really begin in earnest now.
Haslam clipping the curb in his quest to grab second place. A lot of support here for this man, and he's still looking for the win. As I say, leads the table, though. He's out there on top of the table at the moment, but he hasn't won a race. He's had seconds and a fourth, but he's going for second place now. He's on the inside, but Reynolds is riding every bit as hard as Haslam, but he's been forced a little bit wide, and Haslam is through. So Ron Haslam, number 20 on the Norton, is up into second place and having a very serious look at the leading Yamaha of Rob McElnay. John Reynolds won't like that a bit. He's going to find it very hard, I would suspect, to find a way past Haslam.
Certainly there, Barry. Ron did a classic passing manoeuvre there. You can actually be guilty of going into a paddock corner, as you think, a little bit too tight, but the corner opens out, as it did do for Ron Haslam there, and he put quite a professional pass there on John Reynolds, and he's now setting about catching Rob McElnay. Well, Rob, I'm sure, will have his pit signals now that Ron's closing down, and as I say, the race will really start in earnest now. But Ron, it is actually more straightforward to chase for the lead and actually lead. So Ron's got the bit between his teeth now. He's going to go for the win and extend his lead in the championship.
It's all about points, and we have 2 750 races from Brands Hatch today for you. 20 points will go to the winner of each race. Second place collects 17 points, so Haslam is currently sitting in a 17-point position, and he has yet another race, and I'm quite confident that he's not content to settle for 17 points in this one. 20 would be very much nicer for him. He currently has 64 at the top of the table. So the race order, the top 6, Ian Simpson has been pushed down by fellow Scot Brian Morrison. Ray Stringer from Nuneaton is there still in a very good 4th place. John Reynolds sitting in 3rd, and we are looking at that 1st, 2nd and 3rd place battle now, with number 20 from Langley Mill, Ron Haslam, forcing hard to go for the win. McElnay apparently suffering no ill effects from the practice tumble yesterday, and Rob has been quoted as saying that he has never enjoyed his racing more than he is during this 1991 season. With the pressures of the Grand Prix lifted from his shoulders, he can really sit back, if that's the word I can use, and enjoy racing the Loctite Yamaha. Rob, Grand Prix racing, an awful lot of pressure.
Absolutely, you've got the weight of all the factory teams bearing down on you, and Rob, Grand Prix berths are never really the most stable of things, a bit like the economy. And of course, there's added pressure there to get results and maintain your actual ride with the team. And of course, Rob started off riding way back in the 80s, 70s on 4-stroke machines. So really, we could say that he's come home. and he's certainly this afternoon making best use of it. But he's certainly enjoying the attentions of Mr. Haslam. He's closing hard, and the Norton really moving about under power there.
Well, I think moving about was something of an understatement, because a huge wiggle from the Norton as Haslam dialed in an awful lot of horsepower very suddenly, and they're approaching the start-finish straight again, and it's Haslam doing a carbon copy of what he did on John Reynolds, but no, McElnay just held onto the brakes a little bit later and stayed out in front, but he really is under pressure now. These two, well, the combined experience of their Grand Prix years between them, two of the most experienced riders to emerge from Great Britain in the last 20 years, I would say, without fear of contradiction, being chased by what is pretty well a new star. John Reynolds first started racing in 1987, so a fairly tender career for him. Started in vintage racing, a former motocrosser, but a rare talent. And just about everybody out there respects the ability of John Reynolds, and Haslam has moved out of the slipstream and is going for it at the farthest point of the circuit. But no, Rob McElnay keeps him at bay again. And look at Reynolds now. I'd written him off, but he's right back in the picture.
Absolutely, Barry. Well, again, the first two are trying to pass and repass each other, and that in turn is slowing them down, of course. And John Reynolds has now closed right up onto the back of Ron Haslam. It's a familiar sight for John Reynolds, because John, after all his motocross experience and all the rest of it, is a graduate of Ron Haslam's racing school that he ran a few years ago. So he certainly does know how to follow Ron and learn from it. And he'll certainly be feeling the heat from Ron's exhaust. I had the misfortune on Friday practice to have both the Nortons pass me at the same time, and I certainly didn't need to have a shave for at least 2 days, because the flames from the exhaust singed all the stubble off. So John will be getting rather warm.
Well, the Norton, a very revolutionary and special type of engine. It's a rotary engine. It doesn't have pistons like the conventional motorcycle. And it's been a long time coming, that's all I can say. But certainly this new one, Barry Simmons said that it's taken them just 3 months to get it built, up and running, at a fairly nominal cost of something in the region of £30,000 a bike. And that is peanuts by comparison to a Japanese budget.
Absolutely. They have almost multi-million dollar budgets, and of course that Honda are world famous for their computer, so all the knowledge they've got. And for Norton to produce this bike, which is a race winner, and of course they've got the talents of Ron Haslam. He's well known in the UK paddocks and the Grand Prix paddocks as being one of the best development riders going. So Barry Simmons and Ron Haslam, formidable combination, and the results are here for us all to see today.
At the chicane again, nipping through their 5th gear pretty quickly, that's all I can say. And Ron Haslam, with careless abandon, stuck on the back end again of Rob McElnay down towards Clearways. 120 miles an hour down into Clearways, hooking it down through the gearbox Clark curve. The start-finish area again in sight. Will Ron Haslam do it again? Let's see how the Norton fares along this straight. He's out of the slipstream, he's on the inside. That's where he went past Reynolds, and he's done it again. Rob McElnay not having anybody, had to give best to Ron Haslam. Now, can the Nortons stretch that advantage? I'm going to ask Rob Orme that question, because McElnay is a tough cookie and won't give up easily.
Absolutely. Rob's been doing the World Superbike Championship for the past 2 seasons, and passing manoeuvres like that go on 2 and 3 times a lap. So what Rob will be doing now is gauging where Ron's faster with the Norton machine, and also where, with the handling of the Loctite Yamaha, where he might be able to put a pass on Ron. So on top of all that, we've got John Reynolds still hanging in there. Oh, race stringer, the bike's gone pop. Jamie Whittam, so the Suzuki's let him down. That's a shame, but Ron's still hanging on there at the front. Rob McElnay now closing down. I think Rob, what we'll do, we'll follow Ron for a lap and way up where the Yamaha is slightly better than the Norton, and then make a passing manoeuvre. And of course, John Reynolds still there with the watching brief.
Haslam then wringing the neck of the Norton, with McElnay breathing down his exhaust pipe. So Rocket Ron is stretching out again, but tail enders, there's the coasting Jamie Whittam at the side of the track. With it, of course, goes our on-bike camera, so that's a bit of a blow. We're not going to get a rear-end view of Carl Fogarty anymore in this race. Haslam race leader, number 20, with a tail ender ahead of him. Over the line again they go. Rob McElnay now just inching away ever so slightly from John Reynolds as they hurtle down Halewood Hill. Up towards Druids, the tail ender could cause a problem. He's riding the tight line. Haslam and McElnay having a good look at an opening, but there isn't one. Haslam's going to have to go the long way round here on the Cooper Straight, round the outside of the RC30 Honda of the tail ender, which he does, and McElnay goes on the inside, and that's as easy as that, but not quite. Haslam hangs off the left-hand side of the bike, gets his knee on the tarmac, squirts the power in, and he holds on to that very, very slender advantage. A rundown then on the top 6. Number 20, Ron Haslam leads, in your picture. McElnay. Then it is number 6, John Reynolds. Number 17, Ray Stringer, is still in 4th. Ian Simpson, number 7, in 5th. And Brian Morrison has got the worst of that tussle with his fellow countryman and is pushed down to 6th. Tailenders again, number 45, getting in the way there just a little bit. That's Andy Green from Malden. So Andy Green has got Haslam now worrying him, and he's gone through. McElnay now having a look past the tail ender as well. So Rob McElnay is through. Andy Green is now between John Reynolds and Rob McElnay, and Reynolds is having slightly more of a problem, pulls the Kawasaki out on the right-hand side and goes for the inside at paddock, and the first 3 are through. 2.6 miles then to do. Rob Orme is about to leave us to get on with the 125 race. We'll be looking at him in action. Thanks, Rob. See you shortly. Have a good 125. The 750 is now battling. Another tail ender ahead of Haslam. McElnay still with him, so it's going to go all the way down to the wire, this one. Ron Haslam and big Rob Mack. Could this be the elusive win that Haslam has been for throughout Supercup? Half a lap to do. Head down, Ron Haslam from Langley Mill. McElnay in the slipstream. John Reynolds is going to have to settle for 3rd. It's about these 2. Haslam just a bike length. He's had victory stolen from under his very nose on 3 previous occasions. He'll be hoping and praying that he can hang on this time. He's out of the chicane, down towards Stirling's, which will be a left-hander, and McElnay has gone through. Rob McElnay has done it again. Haslam is putting the power down on the Norton, down towards Clearways, and he's back past Big Mac, but he's on the wrong line. McElnay is on the inside, exiting Clearways, but Haslam is coming back. There's nothing between these 2. It's Haslam in the slipstream. Rob McElnay, though, gets it. The flag is out, so another 2nd place. The win was cheated again, Ron Haslam. But Rob McElnay, what a super win for him. John Reynolds got 3rd and Stringer 4th.
Because we had to concentrate on the tennis. Well, on this big motorsports afternoon, we can put that right to a certain extent. Round 4 of the Shell Super Cup. Cadwell Park is the venue, and we're going to see the 750s with Steve Parrish and Barry Nutley.
Fairly humid here at Cadwell, but dry, that's important, and we had some spectacular qualifying yesterday, and Rob McElnay grabbed yet another pole position. He is very fast round here. It's his local circuit. He knows it well. Carl Fogarty there and Ray Stringer on the front row. Stringer then riding number 17 from Nuneaton in the Mobil 1 Team Coleman colours. Has had a really super year, Ray Stringer. Won 3 out of 3 at Mallory Park in the Transatlantic Series on a full 1000cc Yamaha, but this, the 750s, of course. Ray Stringer probably rated by the other riders as the man to beat, and he's been on the front row at every round so far this year. The Team Green Kawasaki Teamster from Nuttall in Nottinghamshire, John Reynolds. A wealth of experience, very highly regarded by his fellow competitors, and went round here at 1:31.2, which is a little over half a second slower than the pole position, but knowing John the way I do, I suspect that there's a little bit left in reserve. Interesting to see if Reynolds then riding number 6 can bring the Kawasaki to the fore. In the middle of the front row, the very, very experienced Scot, Brian Morrison, on the Drambuie Yamaha. Good result in the Isle of Man TT this year. Morrison has yet really to show us the form he displayed so brilliantly in the 88-89 seasons, but nevertheless is bouncing back. The fact that he's third fastest round here today is some indication of a return to form for Brian Morrison. From Blackburn in Lancashire, Carl Fogarty, a very hard-riding Team Silkerleen Honda runner, riding number 9, Fogarty. Just 0.1 of a second behind the pole position time. So Carl Fogarty is going to be a very, very determined protagonist indeed in this 750 race. And there's the pole position man, Rob McElnay, holding the Loctite Yamaha colours here, while teammate Terry Reimer is off the scene. So McElnay, the pole position man, and the second place in the championship. The Nortons didn't qualify too quick at all, and falling very, very heavily in practice yesterday. The man who replaced Neil Mackenzie in the Silkerleen Honda team, Roger Burnett, a local man, had a great ride, you'll remember, in the wet at Brands Hatch, was in pole position at a very wet Thruxton last week. The meeting, unfortunately, was abandoned because the weather was absolutely appalling, but Roger tumbled heavily in practice yesterday, was taken to hospital to have his back x-rayed, has arrived back at the circuit and says he fully intends to do the distance. That remains to be seen. He is just a little bit uncomfortable, to say the least. Jamie Whittam, number 5, the man who did the flying lap for us, carrying the on-bike camera, much happier, and freely admits to being much happier now that he's back in the Team Grant Suzuki camp. Whittam, too, was another faller during qualifying yesterday afternoon, but in his own words, well, the back just slipped out and I stepped off it and there's no harm done. I'm fit and well. So young Jamie, second row, that's a good place for him. Could well be among them. Languishing by Haslam's standards on the 4th row, Norton have had all sorts of problems with the electronics on their bikes here at Cadwell. These are both Haslam and Nation are out on the 1991 Nortons, and team manager Barry Simmons said the electronics were giving all sorts of problems. Haslam's bike was misfiring at anything over 8,500 revs yesterday, and the misfire was unpredictable. It would run happily for many, many laps. They thought they'd cured it, but this morning the gremlins struck again after 6 laps. So I think the philosophy has to be for Haslam to go as hard as he can from the word go and just keep his fingers crossed that the Norton keeps running sweetly. 15